And so I just think the call out tactic is generally not a good tactic. I mean, it's sometimes successful. It depends on the context, but right now it's truly counterproductive. I mean, look, it's not just that we're turning people off of the left. It's not just that our message, our ideas aren't getting through. It's that there is a whole cottage industry being built on making fun of us.
Hi, folks. You're about to hear the conversation I had with Douglas Lain. Douglas Lain is the publisher of the Zero Books Critical Theory imprint. He also runs the YouTube channel and podcast associated with the imprint. He also has a new sci-fi novel out that I reviewed in a previous video. In this conversation, we talk about his new novel, Bash Bash Revolution. We also talk about Jordan Peterson, Gamergate, the left, and a variety of other topics. I think you'll find it interesting. If you would like just an audio version of this, you can find it on my Patreon page. You don't need to become a patron to get it, but while you're at the page, maybe consider doing so. Thanks, folks. I hope you enjoy the conversation. You obviously have lots of experience doing this. This is literally my first time trying to do one of these calls and record it.
Oh. You're doing fine. I wouldn't guess.
I've done a lot of Skype calls from my days as a failed internet entrepreneur. So
tell me a little bit about that before we get started. What were you doing, internet entrepreneur on Skype?
Talked to a lot of developers because, they're all over the place. I wanted to fix ebooks. Really what it was about. I'm going to start going into my sales pitch. I don't even know if I remember it. One of the best things about getting a good book is saying, oh, I love this book. Here, read it. Let's share this book. But you can't do that with an ebook. It's licensed like a piece of software. Mm-hmm. And my idea was to try and find a way to do that where you could let people share the books without eating the authors and the publisher's lunch, and figuring out a way to do that without having each book be DRM'd, having the protection instead be in the platform. So there'd be rules to how the books could be shared on this social network that I actually build the prototype. And at some point, if I get a little bit of traction with my YouTube channel, I might talk about that again. But I don't know. I think ebooks are kind of.
Are they? Do you think they're fading?
I don't know. I don't know. I mean, I think a lot of people still read them, but I think a lot of people want like the physical book, and I think a lot of it though has to do with the fact that you can't share it. I get this thing once, I can read it once, and that's it. My idea was that trying to mimic the way you would share a book. So like you can only share it with people in your network. That's number one. You can't lend out, even though there's no DRM. This were to be adopted, it would probably keep things under wraps. You can only send out one copy like every month. So it'd be kind of like a library in that degree. Right. And then I can't even remember the third thing. It's been a few years since I was trying to hawk this, but yeah.
So do you think that overall, I'm just going to tell you what I think. Mm-hmm. I worry actually, this is not even what I think, but I worry that the combination of the ebook and then the kind of slight decline of the ebook is an indication and sort of was part of a process of just getting people off of books rather than, developing a new way of bringing people books. The ebook was just a step towards the death of the book.
Kind of had a similar thought. Yeah, I don't know what it is. I feel like even people I know who used to read a lot don't have the attention span to sit down for it. And I mean, these are friends of mine who don't have young children.
A few books I read was written as a series of Facebook posts.
Yeah, so exactly. It was
well, okay. So are you're going to start in on me about Bash Bash Revolution here?
Yeah. So
I appreciated your review, by the way.
Well, thank you. And, kind of just going back to what we were just talking about with, people not reading, I had a bump in subscribers. I'm still a really small channel, but I'm up to like 700 subscribers now.
Yeah.
And so when I posted it last week, I was like, oh, this will be cool. I'll put this out and a lot of people will see it. And like 100, it's got like 115 views or something like that. Yeah. And I was a little bummed because I liked the video that I made, and in comparison, I re-uploaded a video that had something to do with Jordan Peterson today because the sound quality, it was only coming out of one channel and people complained. That already has more views, and it's been a few hours, and this one's been up almost a week, I think. Bash Bash Revolution. I really like the book. It's like I said, it's hard for me to sit down and read a book now. 2 kids. I don't have a lot of headspace at the end of the day. I'm more likely to watch a Zero Books video than well, I guess I already did a review, but do you want to give like a quick synopsis for my listeners, because you're going to do that a lot better than I can?
Well, maybe you know the book better than I do.
I've heard you do some interviews, and it seems like somebody else wrote it the way.
The way I describe the book, or
yeah, well, the way you try and remember it. It's funny because I know how that is when you write something and you're like, did I write that? I don't know.
Yeah, right. People will bring up parts of the book to me, and I'll go, oh yeah, I remember that now. What happened at the end of my book? I don't remember. Yeah, this was my 3rd book. So, my first novel took 6 years to write, and believe me, every bit of that book is seared into my brain. But
yeah.
This book, a little less so. It was more easygoing to write it, and it took me longer than I wanted, but it was fun to write. It is about Matthew Munson, who is a teenage kid, 17, I think, and who is one of these gifted and talented program honor roll kids, real smart, into video games. His dad is kind of absent. In fact, very much absent. His dad leaves home when he's 8 and only comes by periodically. And at the start of the novel, Matthew drops out of high school, even though he's doing great and has lots of prospects for college. He drops out because he just feels as though there's no future for him or anyone else. So why should he go through the motions of setting up an adult life? And then his father comes home, and rather than that being of any interest to either his father or his mother, what they're interested in is their relationship, and then his father is most of all interested in his artificial intelligence program that he's working on, and some political problems that he's also trying to fix with the AI's help. And that is the plot of the book. The other plot of the book is this. It starts on media res, I think is how you say that. And so,
yeah.
So it actually starts after the climax of the book. It starts with a good portion of humanity being absorbed into augmented reality that this AI has set up. And they're all all the gamers are captured by the AI's new augmented reality that's taking over their nervous systems and getting them just to play games all the time. And they're dressed up in green lycra suits so they can become anybody. And they have through the goggles they're wearing, you can see whoever else you're playing against as whatever character they're supposed to be rather than themselves. But it's in the world. It's augmented, not virtual. And so that is going on in the present while Matthew tells this story of what happened in the past.
Okay, good. I think that's a good place to kind of start and jump off from. Okay, so let me just kind of... Oh, man.
Have you ever seen Mr. Show?
Oh, yes, of course.
So there's a skit where a guy goes in and asks for change for $1.
Yes. Yeah.
I'll have to call the manager. Can we give change for $1? Whoa.
Yeah, no, that's good. You've shared the companions thing, which my younger brother and I have it's a running thing between us. So it's
a big thing in our family because we have some young people and sometimes they bring their companions over.
Yes, indeed. Yeah. So the thing that I think is interesting about this book that it deals with is the technological singularity. And, I feel like that's an idea that's very much in the ether. And, there's either some people who are, just die hard, like Elon Musk, Ray Kurzweil, think it's going to happen soon. A lot of people are getting more disillusioned with it, though. And I don't know. I wonder Was that like something that you were thinking about a lot, or was it just kind of the background of this?
Well, okay. Here's my confession about that.
Uh-huh.
I decided that the singularity would be part of the novel relatively late in the writing process.
Yeah.
My original thought was I wanted to think of a revolution created by gamers where they would gamify society and replace commodity production with this production for fun.
Mm-hmm.
And so rather than production for profit. So people wouldn't go to work and be exploited. They would go to work because they wanted to, because it was sort of built like part of their leisure activity, part of what they just did with their lives is something they were driven to do. The way, some people are driven to be artists or gamers now, so that our society would run on freely chosen productive activity rather than exploitation and the production of abstract value through blah, 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 all that Marxist stuff. So get rid of capitalism. Replace it with video games. That was my idea. And then I just thought, well, how will a bunch of gamers get the material forces together to impose that on the world? And I said, no, they couldn't really. I mean, I can't think of a way. I need a magic wand.
Yeah, you need the Deus Ex Machina. And
I said, oh, yeah, there you go. The AI will do it for them. Take over all the computers. Take over all the people through the computers. Boom. So that's how it became a singularity novel. And actually that's the whole paradox of revolutionary Marxism, is that in order to change the mode of production, most people believe there's got to be some sort of act of violence, that people won't just sort of spontaneously, cooperatively create a new economic mode that they're going to live with and live through. That don't have to be a conflict. And I was like, I don't want to tell let's guerrilla warfare and blah.
Yeah.
So I was like, what's the cleanest way? And of course, the cleanest way is the one in which humans have the least to say about it.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting because that's definitely the cleanest way to do it. In a lot of ways, it kind of brings together a lot of utopian is the wrong word, probably, but a lot of this type of end of history type thinking you get in, both the technological singularity. To some degree in,
and
Marxist
too, yeah.
in Marxism, but also in Christianity. And I don't know, to me, when I look at the singularity, it looks like the second coming in techno drag,
Right. Well, that's the thing about this book is, right, there's a huge component of the book that's all about the actual, like, Book of Revelations, apocalypse from the Bible, Jesus is coming back story. There's a Christian.
Yeah, and I don't think anybody has done that. People have talked about that, but I don't think anyone has actually written that into fiction. Are you familiar with John Michael Greer?
Yeah, I know of him. Yeah, I'm not super familiar with his work.
Yeah, but he talks about a lot about that in his blog. He's very skeptical of the notion of progress, and he looks at the singularity and all that, and to him it just looks like Christianity and techno drag. So
yeah, well, that's fine by me. I'm as a Marxist, I also think of myself as a good Christian.
Yeah. There's some of the conversations with Derek Varnes on religion have been very interesting, because there's definitely a lot of that, that strong overlap there. So that's always interesting, especially when it's admitted to.
Well, I mean, I don't fully admit to it, right? Like, I try to be a materialist, and I also don't want to end up disparaging anyone else's spirituality or religion. But I just can't miss the fact that there's a messianic component to the Marxist vision. And
yeah, for sure.
And so I embrace it.
Yeah. This might be too much of a tangent. I kind of have my own feelings on this. Some of them are Marxist. A lot of them are actually pretty ecological. I don't know. You can go canned Marxist on this one, or you can branch out if you like. But why the focus on commodity production? I think it's a good focus, but I just want to hear that from you. For me, commodity production. I just go on. I have a point I want to make out of that.
Okay, I'll answer the question. It's because truly trying to get rid of commodity production and overcome capitalism is not just something that I'd like to see happen, but something that I'm wrestling with, like trying to understand. Like I call myself a wannabe Marxist a lot of the time, and that's because it's still somewhat of a struggle to completely conceive of Marx's critique, let alone some sort of project built on Marx's critique. So to understand what capitalism is for me been a struggle, and I think I have a pretty good understanding of it now. And it does primarily involve, once it's developed, the production of commodities to exchange in the market, which requires that labor time becomes the value, which makes exchange possible in a law-like fashion. In other words, you can predict roughly what something's going to cost, not exactly, but roughly based on the amount of time that went into producing it and the amount of resources that went into producing it. That's all because we are living under capitalism. In a feudal society, prices weren't fixed that way, and the prices weren't so significant either. You didn't have to enter the market every day to survive.
Yeah. So this
is all my canned Marxist stuff, but the thing is, the reason I'm interested in replacing commodity production in this book is because I actually am in real life. It also, ties into pretty easy and kind of critiques of consumerism and stuff that people read into this book. And it fits with the idea of augmented reality in Pokemon Go and a sensibility that people just can't escape now, that they've been commodified, that life is sort of cheap, or that communication is cheapened. The idea of the spectacle is also in the book. But all of that sort of, I think I play with that because it turns out the spectacle in this book is actually the sin for overcoming political crisis. It's like actually living in the spectacle rather than pretending like we are, or using that as a critique of what we're living with. Actually living in what we pretend like we are living in would be a way to escape from capitalism.
It's really what I enjoyed about the book. It doesn't shy away from the spectacle. In a way, it kind of dives right into the abyss to some degree. In a good way. I mean, where he ends up in the end, I won't give a spoiler, but it's both a little creepy and comforting,
Yeah. Well, I mean, obviously I side with Matthew over the AI, right? I mean, I'll say that Matthew is struggling to escape from the AI, and I understand why. I mean, what does Matthew have to hold on to against the coming new economy, the destruction of what he thought of as real life and replacement of real life with video games? What does he have to hold on to? The love of a girl.
Yeah.
His love for a girl. It's not even truly reciprocated, but that's what he has to hold on to. And, that's worth holding on to. I mean, if there's a value that we all should sort of, I think we all kind of reflexively hold, is that romantic love is sort of an ultimate human value.
And I guess this will kind of go to my critique. I heard you interview Dmitry Orlov on your old podcast.
Oh, that's
on
a long
Diet
time ago now.
Yeah. It was interesting because I feel like you both had a piece of the puzzle that maybe he wasn't seeing, very much come from that direction of real concern about resource depletion, peak fossil fuels, and all that stuff. He had a real concern that we have all this amazing manufacturing capacity that we're just kind of wasting producing stuff that's ending up in a landfill. And it was interesting because you were talking about like, no, we need to change the mode of production. And he was like, that's not important. And you're going to keep throwing this stuff in the landfill and wasting all these resources if you keep just being engaged in commodity production. And probably the way to move away from that is, or a way to move away from that is to change who owns the means of production and whatnot. It was interesting. I really felt that this book looked to kind of deal with some of those things. And again, it's not even a critique. It's like, science fiction, kind of the things that don't fit into the real world or what makes it interesting and what makes it useful to some degree. The people assembling the iPhones or the AR headsets, are they getting AR headsets too? And it's a fun thing to imagine, how does Bucky make it so that everybody gets that? Are people so stuck in this world that they're kind of like living in filth? But curious like where that's heading, or maybe I'm thinking too much about it.
I think that you're right. I mean, I do think that you're right, that my vision was that, this is going to spread all over the world, and that people in China, people in Africa, people in India, all over the world will be producing through play rather than based on exploitation or, the way they do now. But it's interesting that the conditions that people live in when they're doing this are not exactly so wonderful in reality, right? I mean, porta potties are brought in, I think, hopefully as a stopgap measure.
Yeah.
And, everyone is eating Soylent, which is this hacker powder.
Yeah.
And, their showers, I guess. At any point do I mention showers?
Something like that. Yeah, you mentioned showers or like claw. I don't even. Yeah, something like that.
Right. And so there's some, portable showers or units that maybe powder that you actually, dry washing.
Yes.
Yeah, and so people are never really at home ever again, either.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if I ever deal with the fact that people are sleeping in the dorm world.
Yeah.
But I imagine that there are barracks built or some sort of facilities, minimal facilities, maybe something like you'd find in Tokyo in a drawer.
Yeah.
So, the experience of daily life and the kind of lifestyle that people live, if they're part of the GameCube economy, is wildly different. And it to talk about comparison of lifestyle or between now and then would just be sort of impossible, because the experience and the reality are different, and who you're even talking about is different. Like, you're not necessarily even the same person from one week or another. You are physically, but your identity may be entirely different, and your goals and desires and all that could change based on what game you're in.
It did a good job depicting the singularity in that way, just the utter, you're in one world 1 minute and in another world the next. When I was younger, I never fully swallowed it, but I was very interested in like the kind of 2012 Terrence McKenna timeline thing.
Oh, yeah.
I always found it so fascinating. The work of fiction that I think does it really well to some degree is, have you read the Grant Morrison graphic novel, The Invisibles?
Yes, I have. I'm a big fan of that.
Okay, that makes sense.
Do you think that my book and that comic book are similar?
Just at a degree to which they deal with the singularity. Yeah, well, you know what? I think is in that book, there is talk of virtual reality, and the people are jumping in and out of different worlds, and it's kind of like designer realities and deteriorating.
Yeah, I remember that now. I didn't think about that aspect of I didn't remember that while I was writing the book, but you're right. The difference, I think, is that my characters are more realistic, not maybe not really, but
superheroes.
Yeah, rather than being spies and superheroes. I guess are the Invisibles? Do they have powers? I can't even remember if they have powers.
No, they have occult powers. They don't have straight up powers.
Right.
They're
sort of magicians. They're sort of scientists.
Yeah. Martial artists, maybe. Yeah.
So they're heroes, and the people in this, and Matthew and his dad are just, it's just a, an American family.
Which I guess actually gets me to something I wanted to ask you, which I included in the review. Was the Holy Mountain just random? Just random color for the background, or any connection to anything in the book, or just
it wasn't like I threw a dart,
Yeah.
Yeah, it was definitely a choice. But I wouldn't be able to say. I mean, I guess it has to do with the fact that I knew there would be religious themes, and it was a similarity book. And I'd already started off the book about the Jehovah, like the first line and something like, I should have known what the singularity was like. I know what heaven's going to look like. But yeah, I'm not exactly sure. I mean, that's a great movie. I thought it would be the kind of weird thing that if I was to make a movie of this, and by the way, that's sort of in the works. We're going to have an independent, 45-minute pilot based on this shot. I
heard you say that somewhere else. I got really excited.
I'm hoping that it comes together. Right now there's a short, like a 6-7 minute short being made, and they've got an actor who's playing Matthew, and it's pretty interesting. But so if I were to shoot a movie version of this, I would want that movie to be on the screen in that scene where they're at the, sort of the tournament party, Well,
it's a movie you sit down and get high to. I mean, it's really out there, I mean.
Right. So it fits. They're all getting high anyway in that scene. But the other thing is, it's because at the end of that movie, you see the camera, right?
Yes.
So there's something about that metafictional move this is probably the first novel I've written without that very much. It's really pretty suppressed. Like Billy Moon, my first book, the characters talk about how they might be characters in a novel in the book, and certainly that was probably the most metafictional of my novels, is that one, because the other thing about that book is that if you read it as a straight ahead narrative, there's a point in the book where the book doesn't make any sense anymore, because there's a character who's clearly dreaming, and then he dies in the dream, and then the next chapter is people mourning his death back in, who weren't part of his dream, and
so you're just like, what the fuck?
But they talk about how he died, but it's in the dream that he died that way. But and so what reality are we in at this point? And there's no clear answer to that. So that one was about May of '68. And by the way, I wanted to point out to you, and I interviewed Dmitry Orlov when I was 39. I'm 47 now. 2010. So it's been a while since I talked to Dmitry Orlov.
Yeah.
But I put it on YouTube. I uploaded it to YouTube in 2015.
I think that's how I saw it. Yeah.
But it's just funny how these things sort of stay. When I started podcasting, I didn't have any thought of still doing it in 10 years. I mean, I thought if I can keep doing it every week for a month, I will have committed. I will have really started doing it. And, so it's not been 10 years yet, but it's getting there.
It's interesting. One of those things, I got to a point this week where kids had me very tired, and I was like, why am I making videos? I can't even think straight right now. What am I doing? And then the next day I was all right.
Are you a writer as well as a YouTuber and now sort of podcaster?
I would like to be. Like I said, at the moment, it's really hard to get the headspace to do it. I actually wrote a children's book that I would like to get published. It's a series of 22 rhymes to accompany the 22 major arcana of the tarot. Fished it around to a few publishers. I mean, I'm sure there's a publisher somewhere that would like it, but I just have no idea.
Do you do the tarot? Do you read tarot for people?
I don't read it for people. I use it more as like a meditative device. I would be open to reading it for people.
Would you pull a card and just tell me what my card is? Do you have a tarot deck on here?
Yeah, I got a deck. I'll just let me just Okay, let me get these a shuffle. One of those things that is really, useful. Reason and rationality, they don't go all the way down. And sometimes you need something to break out of that.
Okay. I agree with you to a degree, but I think of it more as like it's fun. It's
fun. Yeah.
Writing fiction. It does help you.
Yeah.
It's a
Exactly.
outlet. It's like you pull a card. You're not necessarily getting. I don't believe in synchronicity. I don't necessarily think you're going to be told anything about the future, but you're being asked to think associationally, and
Well, that's exactly it. As a matter of fact, there's two books I really like on the tarot, and one is just, it has nothing to do with reading it or anything like that. It's just about the archetypes and the symbolism in it. It's really a book of, Hermetic Christian philosophy. The book that I have on reading the tarot that I like, that I've read, is actually by Alejandro Jodorowsky. And so he actually has restored the Marseille deck. Kind of got the original colors, because it was like a 4-color printing when they started mass producing it, as opposed to being hand painted. But anyway, he points out that, like, when you do a reading, you're not trying to, or you shouldn't at least, be trying to read somebody's future. It should be more about, psychological examination and things like that. And
like an ink blot test.
Yeah, like an ink blot, but like a useful one. There's more depth to it than maybe an ink blot.
You're
but
skeptical about the ink blot test. It could be a diagnostic tool. I don't know what your problem is. All right, so
okay, so here, let me pull one. I'll pull one, and I might use that as the image for you on YouTube. We'll see. We'll see how.
Let's see what it is.
We'll see how this works.
I'm scared
they're all good.
They're not all good. They can be reversed. Sometimes they tell you.
No, we don't. I don't mess around with reversed. No.
Oh wait, I'm thinking.
Oh,
okay.
This is the one. This is the one I thought I was going to pull for you. This is.
You cheated.
No, I did not.
What is it? What is it?
It's the Hanged Man.
Oh, see, that does not sound good. You say
no, it's not.
I'm a hanged man.
But you're not hanging. You're okay. I mean, no. If you pull it up, if you
tell me what it means. I want to know why.
It's a meditative type stance. You're not being pulled by any direction. You're being pulled by something higher. The rope. You're hanging upside down by your foot, not hung.
Right. Not by your neck, right?
No, not by your neck. You're chilling in that. You're not like disturbed by that. You're just you're hanging there. The whole world looks upside down to you, but you're kind of okay with it, because you're being held by this thing from above. And
I'll have to look into the Hanged Man and what all the different meanings have been. When I was young, back when I was a young man, I used to like making collages, both audio collages, but also occasionally I'd cut up, magazines and things. And I had a tarot deck, but somehow I got a hold of some sort of new age, ecological, feel good tarot deck with like images of sort of hazy Mother Earth kind of things on them. And I decided to make what I thought of as a modern techno contemporary version, but it wasn't techno at all. It's just like whatever. It was more like Dadaist. It was just whatever I could find, and I would look at what the original card was, and then I would find something like it in like a Mondo 2000 magazine or Life or Time or whatever, and I'd make these little collages. And I made a deck of the major arcana that collaged it, and I told my friend about it, who was younger than I am now, but older than I was then, around his late 30s, I think, that I had done this, and he was like, "You're playing with the devil."
Well, it's so funny that you say that, because I grew up Catholic, and my dad always said the devil is in those cards, he controls those cards. But the book that really made me love the tarot was written by like a Catholic Christian hermeticist. So it's and in my mind, it's the Marseille deck. Everything else is a bastard. It's just
okay. Well, that's how I felt about this deck. Was that it was giving me the same message over and over again that I needed to recycle. I mean, okay, I get it. All right, back to the interview. That was, I feel like, what we're doing is sort of a simulation of right now.
What
is the Joe Rogan podcast?
I was just gonna. I was thinking that wow, am I gonna edit this, or is this just gonna be like a Joe Rogan 3-hour? What is going?
Yeah, and then you just start talking about making a tarot deck, and then the beer you had, and let me show you some weird ass thing I saw on YouTube. And
Jamie, bring up that picture of the guy getting hit by the moose.
That's right. The thing is, I like Joe Rogan. I mean, he's part of that intellectual dark web or whatever. But I of those guys, he's the one that's to me the most benign. Even though I'm sure he could, bench press all of them.
This might actually be a good segue into Peterson.
Okay.
If you want to talk about Peterson, because
I love talking nothing more.
Yeah.
About Jordan Peterson, because I never get a chance to do it.
Yeah, right. Well, it's interesting because he's how I came to learn about Jordan Peterson, and I actually haven't listened to Rogan in a while. I guess the backdrop for why I got so interested in Peterson, I think unlike a lot of people, I had a strong feeling Trump was going to win.
Did you?
Yeah, and again, this goes back to John Michael Greer's blog, because in January of 2016, before any of the primaries, he called it for Trump. He was just like, look, he's playing off working class resentment, and there's a lot of debate over how many working class people actually voted for him, but
enough to matter, right?
Yeah, and exactly enough to matter.
I think it was consequential. I think that I had this debate with a lot of Marxists and some really close Marxist friends of mine who are no longer friends of mine about whether or not it mattered that Trump was appealing to working class people, and also conversely that Hillary Clinton wasn't appealing to working class people. And what I mean by that is Trump was appealing to a certain white demographic in, say, Ohio, to certain segments of the white working class, the people who were white and working class. And Hillary Clinton was not appealing enough to Hispanic and black voters who were working class. They stayed home.
Yes, exactly.
And so that was why the working class put him into power. It's not that the base of his support is working class at all. It's just that he got that little sliver that in American politics puts you into power. I mean, he lost the popular vote.
Yeah, that's
3 million votes, but he won where it mattered.
That was pretty much my read. Yeah, that's exactly how I read it. And so, I had this feeling, and except for the whole pussy grabbing thing, except for like a few days after that, I really knew he was going to win.
Thought he was dead. I mean, not only did I think after the pussy grabbing tape was released that I think he would lose, I thought he would lose and that we would never hear from him again.
Yeah. But then when his numbers popped back up, Brexit had already happened by then. Right. So, and then in the midst of all this, I'm listening to the Joe Rogan Experience, and I see this Canadian professor who's talking about political correctness. He has a lot of the same critiques of the left that I have, and I hadn't yet discovered, let's call it, I think maybe you call it the dirtbag left. It was almost another year before I really discovered it. I don't know why it took me so long. Mm-hmm. And so I started listening to Peterson, and right away I was like, and I don't even think I used the word reactionary ever before, but that was the word that came to mind right away. Well, this is interesting. He shares his lectures on Jungian psychology, but holy shit, what's with the red baiting? Like what? Like it was, I don't know if you've seen any of my videos, but one of them,
you talked about this book, and I thought it was pretty good. But
yeah. The one thing I've done in at least 2 or 3 of them, I've thrown in this mashup of Jordan Peterson and Jack D. Ripper from Dr. Strangelove.
Oh yeah,
because it's John Birch shit.
Yeah.
I just watched that for a while, and I was fascinated by it. It was very strange because I wasn't hearing a lot from the left, getting told that I was a sexist Bernie bro. And then it got even worse because I knew he was going to win. And then he won, and I watched the freak out that went, it's still going on for as far as I'm concerned for a lot of people. It was maddening. And the only people who were saying anything about it were like acknowledging like the idiocy of some of the people and some of the, let's call them liberals, was like, were like the Dave Rubins of the world. I think political correctness is silly, but I'm not going to become a libertarian because of that.
Yeah. Well, okay. So can we talk a little bit about Gamergate, which by the way is sort of talking.
Yeah, we could talk. That's so funny you say that, because that was probably the thing that I, was going to ask you about in relation to Bash. So
I want to hear what your question is, but before we get to that, like I was not a part of Gamergate early on, right? But I guess it lasted like, I don't know, 6 months it lasted like forever. I mean, it was just never ending, the Gamergate. I thought it was never going to end. And my perspective on Gamergate, being kind of part of the science fiction world a little bit, kind of off the, I don't know, I don't go to conventions all the time, but I met a lot of science fiction writers. I've gone to some conventions, and I kind of understand the politics of nerd culture. And the mainstream politics of nerd culture would be progressive liberalism. And, not that that's terrible. A lot of it's really good. But I saw Gamergate as like this fiasco for progressives. It was just like for the nerd progressive, it was just their worst moment. And it was not like the Gamergate side was good. They were horrible too, but it's like you're being attacked by the right. So what you do is you get an ice pick and stick it in your eye. I mean, just, what the hell are you doing? I mean, it was just the dumbest. I mean, just the lowest tactics were being deployed. The most hyperbolic rhetoric was being deployed by people who are like professionals, journalists and things, and game designers. I suppose they probably don't get out much, but still, I mean, I saw this process unfold where people who had never heard of the John Birch Society were repeating John Birch Society rhetoric against some gaming journalist in New York who was saying that the treatment of women throughout history is worse than the Holocaust. I mean,
yeah,
it's like what kind of comparison is that? It's not true, first of all, okay, but it is true that if you want to start counting numbers of dead bodies, women have died prematurely for centuries, and childbirth alone, and then their treatment was horrible by today's standards, absolutely, and also just probably overall. And you hear stories about arranged marriages even today, and women being raped by their supposed husbands who they don't want, but all that happened, and it's not like it's a small thing. But then I don't know, just that move to compare that to the Holocaust and say, if you're not a feminist, you're a Nazi. Worse than a Nazi. Like, wow.
Yeah.
So you're just going out of your way to look absurd to anyone who isn't deep down this rabbit hole of sometimes bizarre thinking with you. And I went on Twitter some, I was foolish enough and said to people, hey, you're don't you think maybe the best way to combat sexism in the gaming industry isn't to write like 5 or 6 articles saying that all gamers are dead? And isn't that just sort of bad in terms of public relations and customer relations to tell your audience that they're all sexist scumbags and they should die? I mean, does that a great political move? I mean, maybe you should talk about something positive instead of just attacking. And it's all because a woman game designer cheated on her boyfriend and he got mad. I mean, the whole thing blew up around that, which was the stupidest. I don't care what, even at that time, which was not that long ago, I guess, I didn't care what, some 25-year-old was doing with her love life or he was doing,
Yeah.
What the hell was, so Gamergate, but the fact that all happened, I mean, I guess you have to read that in the context of larger politics, but it seemed like it was a canary in the coal mine to me. I was really actually kind of concerned about how fascist rhetoric was being, and I thought of it as fascist rhetoric. Now I'm not so sure. Maybe it's just reactionary. Maybe these things need to be distinguished more than I was, but extremely reactionary, anti-communist, homophobic, anti-Semitic rhetoric was being, sexist, racist, all of it was being picked up and normalized because it looked okay, and like people were like living out the fantasy of the right winger. They were becoming it. It was awful. It was just terrible. So anyway, you don't have very many viewers on your channel, right? So I can talk this way and
yeah, I don't, but I was like, wait, he's going to ask me not to put this. He's going to ask me to edit this out because this is going to be some stuff.
But I'm not going to. No, screw it. At this point, no. You can.
No, at this point,
don't ever get popular. And
yeah. When Gamergate was happening, I heard stuff about it. Some people were talking about it, but I mean, I think I had stopped playing video games by that point. I kind of stopped playing video games I'm 37. I've stopped playing video games in like my early 30s, so maybe like 5 or 6 years ago now. And to me, I kind of had a similar take to Angela Nagel on this. I don't think video games are that important. I don't care. And so I missed kind of the canary in the coal mine.
Well, I'm not a big video game player. I mean, I am now more because I have teenage kids and but for a long time I wasn't playing video games. I loved them when I was younger, and then I like played Portal and things like that, and even now I'm on Gary's Mod sometime with my 13 and 15-year-old sons. Play Gary's Mod. I haven't played Fortnite yet, although professionally I'm obligated to play it. But because I'm a science fiction writer, the bleed over from one nerd scene to another was pretty.
Yeah. So the thing I wanted to ask you about actually before, when we were talking about Bash Bash, was, to me it's odd that there is even a thing as not a gaming culture, but like that people identify as gamers. Like I feel like I missed when that happened. I missed when all of a sudden people started saying like, I'm a gamer. I don't know. I grew up with games. Like I remember when the NES came out, I was maybe like 4 or 5 years old. My brother was born in November, so we got it before Christmas.
How old were you when you first went on a date?
When I first went on a date? Oh, that's weird. A date? Well, no, because like
you went somewhere.
It's hard to define date. Like,
all right, I know it's different. When did you give her your leather jacket? No.
Yeah, exactly.
No, but like, when's the first time you had a girlfriend? How about that?
Had a girlfriend. I was maybe I was like in 8th grade. So how old are you in 8th grade? 13, 14, 15, somewhere in there. I don't remember.
That is why you never really caught on to the.
Yeah.
Why are we calling ourselves gamers? I mean, I knew guys that were friends of mine who were not dating and who were, define themselves along the lines of being role players.
Yeah. See, well, here's the thing. I never got into the role playing game, but then I went to an all boys Catholic high school.
Yeah.
And so I did not have a girlfriend all throughout high school.
Yeah, and today as an adult saying I'm a role player is a totally different story than what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
But anyway.
But even that, people are like, I know a lot of people who do that, and I'm like, it's amazing.
Yeah, well, it's just because this is where their social life is, and it's a kind of a badge of honor because they're derided for it so thoroughly. They're not really being derided for it, but that's not why they're being attacked or being bullied or whatever. It's deeper than that, but that's like the surface level of it. Oh, you play D&D.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I get that. I see now. I see. Yeah, it's kind of
Matthew is not a gamer.
Yeah,
Despite
he's
the
not a
fact that
gamer.
He plays Bash Revolution for money and money matches and goes to people's houses and wins and goes to tournaments. He's still not a gamer. There's that moment at the party where he's like, I'm not that really that. I don't really need to learn all this. I'm not that. This isn't who I am. This is not.
Yeah, that for me was one of the interesting things about his character. The fact that even that he was like he wasn't really committed. I actually wanted to ask you a little bit about the what is it? The Responding to Jordan Peterson conference.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, because that, to me, that's interesting because I don't know. I feel like I'm at a point right now. I think a lot of people are at the point right now where you want to respond to them, but you also just want to ignore them and want them to go away. And so this seems interesting.
Well, this was born out of him challenging Slavoj Žižek on Twitter. This Dave Jonathan, who's really the main organizer for this, he's at the University of Boise, and he contacted me to ask if I'd be interested in doing it right around the time that Žižek challenged Peterson. Peterson challenged Žižek on Twitter. He didn't actually challenge Žižek. He challenged a quote bot.
Yeah, that was great.
but Žižek eventually got wind of it. I guess someone wrote him a letter and put a stamp on it and mailed it to Žižek where he could read. And there's something called Twitter. So on and so on. So that's why this happened. And so now it's still happening. And I think that it will be worthwhile. I don't think Peterson's moment may have passed by October. I doubt it.
Yeah, he's able to play the media pretty well. He might not be doing the book tour, obviously, but he'll be on to his.
We're going to invite him to come to it, and Žižek may come too. In which case,
I might make a. What did he do? He likes old westerns, so I might make like a good, the bad, and the ugly type calling him out video. Although call out is just the wrong word. I don't like that word.
Well,
but
it's a public challenge. It means something different. It's not.
Yeah.
It's like, hey, it's a public challenge.
I might do that at a point, but I think I might submit something. I might actually talk about one of the things that he's silly about is, and I think a lot of people have covered a lot of other things pretty well. One of the things he's silly about is differences between men and women in mythology and in archetypes, really. This idea of feminine being associated with chaos. It's not even that it's like wrong. It's not anywhere near the framework I'd put it in. Like, the tarot doesn't do it. The I Ching doesn't do it like that. It's just so different. It's not, it's orthogonal to what.
I don't know Jung very well. I know a little bit, but I
don't either. Yeah.
I know a little bit about Lacan and, through Žižek, but also reading some about Lacan and some Lacan. And I know that he says, the woman doesn't exist. Lacan is a big infamous, people, feminists hated it, and my understanding of what that means is that it has to do with like the feminine from a psychoanalytic perspective, not from a Jungian mythological perspective, but just from a psychoanalytic perspective, coming out of Freud. And there's lots of reasons to be skeptical about Freud's sexual politics or sexual sexism. But the idea is that the feminine, the woman, represents nature. And you can find like this in feminist texts too, that this is a problem for women, their association with nature. So, and nature philosophically is what is outside the realm of I would say, like in Kantian terms, it's the noumenal realm. It's the unperceived. That's what exists, that supposedly is inspiring our perception of the world, but which we can never access because it is the thing in itself outside of perception.
Mm-hmm.
So when he talks about women or the feminine being chaos, he is suggesting that the world of perception and civilization and reason, all of that masculine stuff, is ordered.
Mm-hmm.
And that there really is a split, and that the chaos, the noumenal, the thing in itself, the thing that we can never reach, according to Kant, is chaos.
Mm-hmm.
But like a Lacanian perspective, the whole point is that that the other way is like woman is one of the names of the Father. That chaos is in the world. That chaos is actually part of that distancing, that objectivity, the gap, as Žižek would talk about. That's built into our perception. That's the way we can perceive. So, you can't to say that the feminine is chaos is to deny how, at least from a certain level. I mean, I'm sure Peterson would nuance,
Yeah.
But it's to deny how the masculine is in a dialectical relationship with the feminine, and those terms are how perception requires another or an objectivity in order to, the subject requires an object in order to be a subject. That this is a relationship, not a balanced one, not like a yin yang symbol, but a dialectical, constantly kind of dynamic relationship.
Interesting.
So there's my little Zizek song and dance.
Yeah.
Sometimes pull that out on podcasts.
You're definitely going to have to watch. I have 2 videos that feature some Zizek in them. One of them's about Peterson. That's actually the one I just reposted today with the better audio quality.
The other thing to say is that if the woman doesn't exist, then neither does the man.
Yeah. It's all.
The man has to be in relationship to the woman.
So
that means your desire is going to break down. That you
no night without day. It's
there's no
one
day,
of the.
There's no.
Yeah, it's coincidentia oppositorum, as the alchemists would say. So the matchup that I have thought for a while since I first saw Peterson that I thought would be really interesting. I mean, Zizek would be interesting because, it would be like that Kermit the Frog, Oscar the Grouch type matchup.
Yeah, Felix Unger and Oscar.
Yeah. As far as somebody who would just make Peterson look silly, and I think that his type of fan base would get won over. But
Terry Eagleton, right?
Terry Eagleton. I mean,
you saw Terry Eagleton debate Roger Scruton?
Yes, I have.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what made me think about it. I was like, well, he'll sit down with a conservative. It's one thing to have. I mean, it's the difference between Zizek doing drunken boxing and maybe showing Peterson what's up, and Terry Eagleton being like the white eyebrowed master, just being like, no. Like,
right. Yeah. That's really funny that Zizek is a drunken master. That's his style, is karate. Yeah.
There's something about, especially too, because Eagleton is very much steeped in religion, but also a Marxist, and also very steeped in, I would say, the liberal tradition as much as he is in any radical tradition. And I just think, and the accent too, it's
Zizek is not good at debating. I've never seen him debate really.
Yeah.
And he usually is sort of suckered into it.
Yeah.
Like with Will Self, I guess.
Exactly. Yeah. I was thinking that. Yeah.
So I don't know if he would be a great debater. It would be more like a dual performances. Who's going to win over the crowd?
Exactly.
And our crowd will be mostly pro Zizek, I would figure. But Peterson probably won't even show, in which case that's a victory.
Yeah.
But if he does show, I was going to say something very arrogant. I think I would do a better job at debating Peterson than Zizek would. But
I agree.
But not because Zizek is like 100 times smarter than I am. But he just can't stop talking.
Mm-hmm. And he knows it.
Yeah, right. So he just will lose the track of the audience anyway. He will go off to the subject. And so I think I could stay on top of it a little bit.
No, I totally agree.
No one cares. People would love to see Zizek debate Peterson. So that's
Yeah. I think you should try and get Terry Eagleton to come to the conference. He's probably too busy. He's probably too much of a bigwig, but
well, we could certainly invite him. It looks like we've heard tentatively that Zizek might be interested, and we have Peter Rollins. Have you heard of Peter Rollins?
I just threw the I just threw the post today. Yeah.
Oh yeah. So if you look him up, he's really interesting. He's Christian. He's but he's sort of like he's like one of these neo-Marxist postmodernists.
Yeah, right.
He's like a post-Christian, like, like give up religion for Lent type. Go for this season we're going to go and visit other people's churches and ask them about their beliefs, and that's like his mission. Spent a week with the Scientologists or whatever, and so he's really it's just Irish, philosophical, kind of soft-hearted guy, and I've interviewed him once, and I should do it again, and I invited him to come, and he agreed, so that was really nice, and so he'll be there. And then, Angela Nagel said she might be showing up, and then Varn.
Oh, great.
Varn, who could, oh my God. Keep him away from everyone.
Oh, yeah. Either you or Varn would definitely be up to the task.
Yeah, well, I don't know. I think Varn... I have not seen Varn debate either. I mean, except for against me, in which case he always wins. But so I can't say. But I'm like, I get this more like, well, so yeah, we're trying to agree. So it turns into one. I think it's going to be fun, and I think it's a real opportunity to get people to talk about the left and what we can do to reorder our house and all that and clean up our room. The thing is, like, I think the way we think about what's wrong with the left is wrong. Like, the problem with the left is not that they care too much about racial sensitivity. It's not that they care too much about, hold on. So it's not too much that we care about gender equality. As my wife takes the kids home while I chatter on here. It's that we have lost faith that we can do things in the world to change conditions. And that we feel like our only tactic is just to try to get people to be better. Yeah.
Moralizing and just
And it's not like these people are not that way in every other incident. They're not. It's not like they have a propensity to be moralizers. It's that there really is a rise in reaction.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the first video that I made on Peterson, do them now, where I try and do a little bit of production at least, even if it's just a tarot card in place of me speaking to the camera. But my first video I did on Peterson was really about that. It was an idea I took from Meditations on the Tarot, and it's this idea of reactionary. He calls it, electrical energy. It's kind of how I think about it. It's that feeling you get when you're on social media and someone trolls you and you get agitated, so you throw something back, and it's just reacting, and it creates friction and heat, but it doesn't create light. You're just kind of responding to things, and in that responding to things, you're not trying to actually do anything. It's very sterile.
Wait 10 minutes before you tweet back, or maybe longer. Maybe give it a whole day, because there's this. You have an instantaneous emotional response, and especially if you're a writer or something, you might just write this back, or a really stinging line, but you have to ask yourself: are you helping the person who's attacking you?
Yeah,
responding that way.
Yeah, that's it.
Always ask: is what's the outcome of this going to be? If I can try to predict. And so I just think the call-out tactic is generally not a good tactic. I mean, it's sometimes successful. It depends on the context. But right now, it's truly counterproductive. I mean, look, it's not just that we're turning people off of the left. It's not just that our message, our ideas aren't getting through. It's that there is a whole cottage industry being built on making fun of us.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, and so when I finally did discover the dirtbag left, I think the first thing I read was the Angela Nagel piece in Current Affairs about self-flagellation on the left, and it was because I experienced some of that online, and I shared it with somebody like then I defriended them, I think, because it was just it was my way of it was my way of just dropping a turd on their lap and then being out. It was like, somebody saying like, it was a white person saying, or a man or somebody saying something
could
like.
Could it have been a white man? Could it have been?
Yeah, it was a white man. And this wasn't even, and he wasn't even the person I was friends with. It was a white woman, but she, he had responded something to her that she had written and he was like, I just want to commit manicide. And I just said, kill yourself then, and drop that in there. And I was like, I wouldn't do that, but I never have to hear from this person again. And it was bad. I know it was bad, but it was just like, that's what
manicide just killing one man, or is it killing all men?
I don't know. I don't know. I would have to look that up.
Well, it makes a difference. If he wants to commit manicide, it just could mean that he wants to kill a guy, which might be even justified. But killing all men, that could be a problem, even for women. I hate to say it, but
for most women, I think most women that would be a problem.
Yeah, no. Look, this idea that one of the great things about Marx is that he lifts some of the burden off of everybody, because, like, for instance, colonialism, which is was a crime really against peoples and robbed people of their autonomy and wrecked cultures and traditions, which capitalism always does. It was not because the European colonizers, have some ethnic, spiritual, genetic propensity to be colonizers. It's because capital accumulates, and these guys were the first ones to get the disease.
Yeah.
So and capital accumulates, and it drives growth, and it requires new terrains to exploit and new markets to open up. I mean, just to be kind of simple-minded about it. So that's what drove colonialism. And that's, and empire building is, you can look to other explanations before capitalism, but that kind of imperialism that we see now in the colonial projects we see after the advent of capitalism were built on that. And you have to take that into account and say, look, we could do better as a humanity. We don't have to say, oh yeah, well, the Chinese are just, they have the propensity to do something like the rape of Nanking.
Yeah. You get into essentialism, and it's not useful. And I find a lot of people come to this kind of not dispassionate, but too detached isn't good. But yeah, like realizing that you're influenced very much by your material conditions, and there's not a lot of ways around that. And
material conditions are built also on your foundational assumptions and your culture too. Like, like capitalism is not simply a matter of having Coca-Cola. Like the whole cultural aim of producing a certain kind of value in the world, and that was historically and culturally produced. So it's not like that's just completely separate from who you are. It just means that it's not natural. It's not part of your fiber. It doesn't mean that even as a general rule, that say British people are imperialist colonizers by nature, and they're just, luckily right now.
Yeah.
That's just not the case. And so that changes the amount of animosity there has to be between people. If they, that doesn't mean there shouldn't be animosity between people if they're coming in and colonizing your homeland. But just that if they're not, and they happen to be of the ethnicity that has in the past, that doesn't necessarily mean that they have that mentality. It doesn't mean they don't, but it also means that when you try to address it, you can address it in a sideways angle. You don't have to go right at that person and try to destroy everything about them.
Yeah. So one of my first videos is, and I actually, if there are rules written at the conference, I would actually like to suggest this one. Judge actions and ideas, not people. It's just a really good rule of thumb. And I think most people I know who think clearly do that without even, adopting it as a rule.
Right. I mean, it's not always that, even that rule, which is good, isn't always the case. I mean, there's a reason why Harvey Weinstein is turning himself into the police.
Yeah. Look, and there's a reason I detest, like, Ben Shapiro, or,
Right. And he's a dick.
Yeah, it's like I just look at him and I go, oh, I would stuff you in a locker, but I don't.
He's probably more likely to be stuffing people in lockers.
He's little.
Is he small? Yeah,
he's small.
Bullies are sometimes small.
Yeah, he'd be getting other people to do it for him
or
by
or picking on a kid that's like 3 years younger.
Yeah, exactly.
but the point is that he looks like a little shit. And like I dealt with him I've dealt with guys like him when I was younger. That's for sure. Now, I say that, and he could, I think it's possible that he would, like, stop making that expression and stop saying the crap he says and maybe be just fine.
How very Christian of you.
Yeah.
I just have two more things I just want to run by you because I think I'm taking up a lot of your time.
No, it's fine. I sort of decided I was just going to relax and chat instead of like do my usual. And you should buy my book.
Cool. Yeah. That's good. That's exactly what I was hoping for. That's good. So, like, who do you think's done a good job of dealing with Peterson, like, of critiquing him?
There was something in the current affair.
Yeah, I thought that was good.
And there was this guy who wrote a piece for a Catholic.
Yes.
I liked a lot, even though it was not from the perspective that I would take, despite my Marxism, which,
Yeah.
No, he hit him. I mean, that piece was a little bit pedantic.
Yeah.
But it was not terribly pedantic. Well, I would have liked it for him.
When you make simple mistakes, it's you kind of have to be pedantic,
Sure.
And when somebody makes so many simple mistakes.
What I mean is,
I had it.
For instance, in that piece, he mentions how Peterson doesn't engage with Aristotle, who he really ought to be engaging with, because Aristotle made a case for happiness and the good life being the aim of life, and Peterson rejects that. Or seemingly does. And I would have liked it in that if he had spent a little bit of time describing what he thought Aristotle's position was more fully.
Uh-huh.
But it would have meant making a longer piece, right? And it would have meant he couldn't then list 5 or 6 other things that he gets wrong. But, with philosophy, it's always a matter of interpretation and understanding the argument. And so if you just say he's not engaging with Aristotle, boom, and leave it at that, that's convincing enough, but it wasn't as convincing as it could have been if it had been a little more fully worked out. I'm going to actually have that guy on my podcast to talk about his piece.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, so I like that piece. Of course, Kathy Newman. No.
Yeah, right.
She was terrible.
ContraPoints, I thought did a good job.
ContraPoints I didn't watch all of ContraPoints' one because ContraPoints has 100,000 YouTube followers and I have 17. So and ContraPoints is so much prettier than I am.
Yeah, it's true.
No, but I like ContraPoints' work in general. She's really fun.
I think she's one of the people who made me decide to get on the platform. I realized that you could be intelligent and do it. And before we go, I want to suggest you watch some of my videos.
Okay.
I'm going to give you a rundown of some of the ones I think you should watch. I actually don't know if you should watch my one where I point out what Peterson gets wrong about Marx and postmodernism, because it's so tedious and boring, and it's like one of those things I cringe at because it's just me reading to a camera. The most recent one that I uploaded with Zizek and it's got clips from Zizek and Terrence McKenna.
By the way, I said it Zizek for the longest time myself, but I think it's Zizek.
It's Zizek.
Yeah.
Zizek.
Zizek.
Okay, with
You have
Zizek.
to wipe your nose. That's part of his name.
Well, I'm actually. That's legit, actually, right there. I was holding that in for a little bit.
Why do you let it go?
That's actually the one I'm just most proud of. I have one where I talk about turning bankrupt businesses like Toys R Us into worker-owned co-ops, because it seems like an obvious thing. We should be able to crowdsource that. I have one where I discuss occupying Trump's golf courses. Which seems like just either the best idea in the world or the worst idea. I can't figure it out.
Yeah, it depends on how you do it.
Yeah. It seems like
cry and scream at the sky and moan on the golf course, that will not be good. But if you dress up like Bill Murray in Caddyshack and like have 100 or 200 Bill Murray from Caddyshack people running around blowing up, chasing a golfer and interrupting the game, that would be good.
You dig latrines and put up tents on his golf course. You get a bunch of dirty hippies there. I mean, that would drive him. It might get.
I like the flash mob, Bill Murray impersonators.
That would be too perfect. I think those are the ones that I really think you should check out. I think the original one was called Pure Ideology. I think I gave it a different title, the one I put up today.
I will check it out. I will, and I will tweet it at people.
That's big, yeah. That's good.
And we should. I'll tell you what. I'm supposed to start my people, a couple of Irish drunks, tell me that I should start collaborating with other YouTubers to help the channel.
Okay.
And so, I will. You and I can collaborate.
Sounds good.
I will mention we should sometime in the next month. We should pick a topic that we're both going to cover, and we should mention each other's videos at the end of ours.
Okay.
Would you be willing to do that?
So pick a topic. We'll both do a video on it, and we'll.
If you're interested in more about this topic, go see.
Yeah, that's cool. I like that.
Okay. All right. So that sounds good. And thanks for having me on. And
thank you. I have 700 subscribers. This really, and probably, I would say at least 500 are probably subscribed to you. So.
Oh, is that right?
I don't know. I mean, actually, a few of them were like, "Thank you for telling me about Zero Books," because I think I mentioned, whichever video you make the criticism of Peterson, where you point out that, where's John Locke in comparison,
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was a fun one. That one's done pretty well. So did you see Zero Books before you started doing your videos?
Yes, I definitely, I did. That was
and Slimy Clearing seemed like they've seen my stuff. I get a sense that maybe I was in it. I like.
Oh, definitely. Like the biggest influences on me, at least in terms of what I can do, are like you, Sean, just because the static image. A lot of people do static and that kind of placeholder. Have you heard of this guy, 3 Arrows?
Yeah, I've seen his stuff. It's been recommended to me.
So speaking of super, super jealous, he started making videos the same time as me. And he has 20-something. He's probably got 30,000 subscribers by now.
What the fuck is that? I've got 17. What is
You know what we need to do? Maybe the video we need to make together is about the alt-right, because that's how he got. I mean, I enjoy his videos. It's not like they're, bad or anything. He makes good, he's German. He makes good historical videos, mostly about like Weimar Germany and Nazi Germany and things like that. But he made a video that had something to do with the alt-right, and it got flagged, and a whole bunch of other people mirrored it so that, other people could see it. And then it's, again, that reactionary thing, if it's kind of why I go back and forth on even thinking about some of these, or talking about some of these things, because it's like, how much of the alt-right is just being blown out of proportion? How much is it a real threat? I have no idea. It's kind of like, how many of these blue-haired social justice warriors are there, and how many of these tiki torch carrying guys are there? I don't know.
Yeah, look, I'm going to do one on the on the incel phenomena. But the reason why, though, I'm going to do that is because I had an incel reach out to me, and I actually interviewed him for the podcast.
Oh.
And I actually do think I have something to say about the subject, which I don't think is, which is sort of based on Christian Lash, but which is, I don't think at all, sexist or reactionary or anything. But I would just say we need to understand that when these guys are saying they feel as though there are social forces that stop them from being able to be successful in their love life, they may not be wrong.
Yeah, it's
and that's it. It doesn't mean that, women are obligated to do anything. It just means that if you want a society where there's more pair bonding in an equitable way, you might think about what sort of society what that would look like. And if you're an incel and you would love to have the roles reversed, where men were more likely to reproduce than women, which is, I guess, a big deal. Is like women reproduce at a faster rate or more often than men do because they're sleeping with more than one mate. So, if you want that, the best thing to do, create a matriarchal society.
Yeah, it seems like it.
In matriarchal societies, women take more than one husband, and it's a good way to make sure you're getting laid on a regular basis. You'll have to, you'll all be cucks, but
everyone will be a cuck. Everyone will be a cuck then, yeah.
Yeah. So that's maybe that should be the title of the video. We should all be cucks.
We should all. Oh my God, you would get 1 billion views on that one.
Maybe I'll do that.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah. I'll talk to you soon. This is a lot of fun. I'm gonna.